you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche And after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. We will shortly be joined by the legend himself, Scotty Bowman. Will you join us here? We were originally going to have Ken Holland, Hall of Famer as well, join us, but he had to reschedule. And, you know, we just went into Pierre's Rolodex and got Scotty Bowman. There you go. So that's a good one coming out of the bullpen, Pierre.
Well, first of all, you did it, and thank you for doing that. And second of all, you know, what a treat.
Yep.
I have this unbelievable opportunity to talk with him often, but to me, it's a treat to share him with everybody. And for people to actually hear his wisdom and his takes and what he thinks of the league and what the trends are in the league. And, you know, one of the first questions I'm going to ask him, Jimmy, is about the late Al McNeil.
I was thinking of that too.
Scotty replaced Al.
Yeah.
And I know how much respect Scotty has and had for Al, but I want people to hear it from him.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing story. And so there's so much. And we have to keep getting things out of Scotty. He's 91. We just need to keep learning and getting things out of him so that we learn the lessons from the greats from the past.
Yeah.
And he loves to educate and he loves to teach.
Yeah. But you know what else I've noticed about Scotty too, that says even more about him, in my opinion, Pierre, is that he loves to learn as well. And when he learns, for him to then take it and combine it with the previous knowledge he has and then give that to us, that's like amazing.
You know what? That's good that you said that. I agree. 100%. He's
always watching the game. He's always looking for different things.
Yeah, different ways.
Well, I mean, Pierre, and I'm not saying this just because you're my friend and my partner. I see a lot of him in you. And, you know, that's one thing I admire about you is that you're always trying to learn something new every day, like you tell me to do. So it's great to see you do that still, and to see Scotty do it is great.
Well, I'll never stop. If I stop, you know what to do with me.
Well, I think God would have already taken care of that.
You need to know what to do with me. You know, but one of the things I'm curious about what you think from last night.
Yeah.
San Jose goes into Detroit and they win 6-3. Now, like, I'm not saying Detroit stunk. They weren't very good.
Mm-hmm.
But they dominated faceoffs. They won 53 versus 47. So they dominated faceoffs, which is a good thing for them. But they didn't play smart. And they let, I think, William Eklund, Tyler Toffoli, and Macklin Celebrimi dominate the game. And I'm surprised about that, Jimmy. It was something I was surprised by.
Pierre, you know, look, I'm looking at that game and same thing. And remember, I apologize to our Betway picks and all that because the first period rule did not go into effect. You know, good on Georgiev that he did not let his team come out of that first period losing. In fact, they were winning.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, I'll say about that, you know, sometimes that can happen when a team's on a roll and they're not used to being on a roll, right? Because this has been a work in progress for Detroit all season, even going back to last season. Yep. They're still learning how to win. And I think sometimes when you're in that stage, I'm not going to accuse them of reading their clippings or, you know, getting a little high in themselves or anything. I don't think that was it at all. I think that sometimes, though, maybe it's tendency to get ahead of yourself.
I think they disrespected the opponent.
Yeah,
I do.
And that's natural.
They said, hey, it's San Jose coming in. We've been on a roll. Look what we did to Seattle on Sunday. We beat them in the first 8 minutes of the game. It's San Jose.
Yeah.
You know, and look, that happens. Doesn't happen all the time, but it happens. You know, I was texting with you last night, watching the Toronto game, and I go, Jimmy, they're up 1-0. They're blowing these guys right out of the building. They hit the post 3 times in a row. You know, like they were blowing Dallas right out. And then all of a sudden, you look at the final scoreboard, it's 4-1 Dallas. And you're like, what the heck happened here?
That's a big win for Dallas, too. They hadn't won in Toronto in a long time. And just they quietly are on a hell of a run right now. 8-1-1 in their last 10, Pierre, the Dallas Stars are.
So here's the best player in the league. And unless you live in Dallas, you don't even know who he is, Miro Heiskanen. He's the best player in the league that nobody talks about. We all know about Cale Makar. We know about Quinn Hughes. We know about Lane Hutson now, Jimmy Lane Hutson.
Well, we're
We
going
know
to talk
about him.
about that.
Okay, we know about Lane Hutson. Just that's a subtle reminder. That's an inside baseball joke between Jimmy and I. So, anyways, we know about Lane Hutson, Jimmy, right?
Yes, we do know about Lane Hutson.
Making sure, just making sure.
Yep. But I want to get back to San Jose quickly before we move on from that too. The other thing too, and I don't know, I'll try. I don't know what have it up in front of me, Pierre, too, though, is that San Jose, they're not winning every game like that, or they're not winning every game, period. But over the last, I'd say 3 to 4 weeks, they're usually in every game compared to earlier in the season, and they're competitive. And I think that not only Detroit, a lot of other teams better pay attention to that going forward, because it's not going to be the cakewalk that it was last year. This is 90% of the time. You better be ready. I mean, they're going to come at you, and they may not be as skilled as you. They may not be as big as you, but they're going to compete, and they have a ton of young skill that's hungry. And so I think they're a dangerous team. And when I say dangerous, I mean just for the teams competing for playoff spots, that when they're looking at their schedule and they're kind of picking games, all right, we should be good there, we might not be good. Don't look past them. That's all.
No, I like that. I like what you just said, because you need to beat that team. It's like I told you the other night. If Chicago beats Calgary in Chicago, Calgary's not for real.
Yeah.
But Calgary goes in there and they put a beat down on them.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden, and I know they lost last night in St. Louis 2-1. I know. But that's a back-to-back.
On a back-to-back.
No, but that's a back-to-back. But they had, if you want to be relevant in the playoff race, you can't lose to teams that are at the bottom of the league or the division.
Yep.
And so Calgary took care of business and in Chicago. So, San Jose is going to be one of those teams that's going to ruin the party for some people. And I agree with you. Ryan Warsofsky, the young coach there, he's doing a good job. You know what I really enjoyed last night, Jimmy? And if you get a chance, read some of his post-game stuff. Smart, focused, educated, something that a real, well-trained coach would do. And I like what Ryan Warsofsky said post-game last night after San Jose beat Detroit in Detroit.
I do too. Well, we'll get back to that and some of the other games from last night, and then look ahead to the 2 games tonight. But right now, it's our honor to welcome on our good friend and the legendary Scotty Bowman join us here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. Hey, Scotty, how are you?
Right. Good, James. Hi, Pierre.
Hi, Scott.
I love it. Good to see you. Scotty and I were texting earlier, and we were talking about Lane Hutson and the job, what he's done lately and his emergence right now. Scotty, what do you think's been the difference? Let's say the cutoff date is maybe American Thanksgiving. So the difference between Lane before American Thanksgiving and now, what have you seen different in his game, in his adapting to the game that has made him be able to do what he's doing right now?
Well, he's certainly been a surprise, although Pierre had known him before he even got to the NHL. And I think the fact is that they gave him a shot, and they played him a lot. He's got confidence. And now I haven't seen all the games like Pierre. Is he on the power play now, Pierre?
First power play. Took Matheson's spot. Yeah.
They moved him after. I mean, he proved himself. Yeah. But I'm surprised how they use him against anybody. The play that I remember the most after, I don't see him all the time, but I think it was a recent game. Pierre would remember it. Whether it was Dallas or somebody, it was 2-on-1, and he made a terrific play.
Dallas.
3-on-3. I mean, not many defensemen could make the play that he did, because it looked like a pretty sure good chance for Dallas to win the game. And then they reversed it, and it went up the ice and won the game. So, yeah, he's got all the tools. I don't know how he could be so good, so young, but I know people in Montreal that I also talk to quite a bit. One, Pierre knows, because I was supposed to meet him today, but he had to do something else. Serge Savard doesn't say much about Canadiens now, but he mentioned his name to me. He said, this guy is really something.
Wow.
So, I mean, he watches the game. I don't think he goes to the games all the time, but he said he's got everything. He said he's got confidence. He's got, he can make plays that a lot of players, and it's showing up in the production now. So I mean, he's going to be. I mean, whether they like it or not, the observers are going to have to put him in the mix for certainly you got the rookie, and also you talk about the Norris now.
For sure. I agree.
The other two defensemen in the league that, to me, that play and run games, McGuire we know, and Hughes in Vancouver. I mean, they're so special, and they play so consistently. When they don't play, when they're not on the ice, the game changes. Same as now with young Hutson. I don't know much about his brother, but Pierre, is his brother coming the same way, or?
He is actually. He might be a better pure scorer than Lane. He plays at Boston University, just won gold with Team USA. Really a lot of the same mannerisms on the ice, Scotty. Scotty, I got to ask you, of all the people that you've ever had the privilege of working around and with, you have this unbelievable eye for young talent. You drafted with your staff in Buffalo, Phil Housley. Is there any similarity between Phil Housley and Lane Hutson when you watch them?
Well, I give all the credit to Rudy Miguel. The late Rudy Miguel was a scout that watched a lot of U.S. We got so lucky with Housley because he was, as a junior, he was outstanding. He played forward, he played defense. We saw him, everybody saw him, but we were lucky because in those days they didn't scout like they do today. So the problem with his team, the next year when he was in his draft year, they didn't make the tournament. So most of the times in the 80s, the scouts went to the tournament. They didn't go during the year. So they wouldn't have seen him play as much as Rudy, but Rudy had him right from the beginning. And the other guy was a fellow that was a great scout, Teddy Hampson. He worked for the Central Scouting, and he played for the North Stars. And I couldn't believe, we didn't have plans that he could come and play like he did, but he's as good a comparable as Lane Hutson. They weren't big guys. Phil never was that big when he started, and he just came in, and I think a lot of the confidence comes from the coaches too, that they've seen something. I mean, obviously when you're coaching a team, you know the players better than anybody, but still, Marty St. Louis doesn't hesitate. He can't get him on the ice enough, and that's the way we were like that with Phil Housley. We had Red Berenson at the time. I had Red Berenson came over from St. Louis, and he was our assistant coach. And we had some young players. We had Housley, we had Andrechuk, we had Tucker, Adam Creighton. We had about 4 kids that came in at the same time, and Tommy Barrasso, of course, the goalie. But the coach, we played him all the time, and that's what Hutson. I don't see him losing his confidence because he's going to be that kind of player. And it's amazing, Pierre. I told you before, and James, I mentioned to you, James, in my text. Yeah. My grandson was practicing because he's an 02, and I think Lane, is he an 04, Pierre? What is
04.
04.
Yep. 04.
So my grandson was about 10 years old. It might have been 9, and this player was on the it was a rink that had a small little ice surface. I forget what they called them. It was just a little place where you skate. And he was on it alone. And I was watching my grandson in the game. And then I happened to go by this rink. And one of the fellows that I've kept in touch with, he has a company in Chicago, a very good man. He's had a lot of good players that started with him. Kevin Delaney. It's called Delaney Hockey. And so I said, Kevin, who's this guy? And he was involved. It was a team in Chicago called CYA. It was called Chicago Young Americans. Now, Lane Hutson's father was coaching that team in I don't know what category, but the boy was not, I think he had just started, but he wasn't going to school. He was homeschooled, as I understood at that time. Yeah. I said, how come he's not at school? He said, well, he's homeschooled, but he skated all the time. Yeah, yes, his brother, but then the father, I think Pierre, the father came from Canada.
Well, the one brother, Quinn, the other brother that plays at BU with them, or did play at BU, the eldest one, he played with my son in Penticton, Quinn.
Oh. Well, so, I think his father is either from Calgary or Edmonton. He came to Chicago to run the Heartland Arena, and then he was coaching. Like CYA it's in Chicago. They have organizations, Mission and all that, and they bring people in to run all their teams. Now he went from there, Pierre, to New Jersey. Is that correct?
Chicago, New Jersey Avalanche, yes.
And is that where Lane Hutson grew up, like playing hockey?
Well, I couldn't speak to that because I think he was more of a U.S. development person, but you're probably right.
But when he was really young, wasn't the player in Boston, Charlie McAvoy? Didn't he actually play in New Jersey too? A
lot of kids did.
Yeah, a lot of kids even if they're from Long Island, like they got hockey there too. But boy, it's a pretty. There's a lot of players that you don't realize come. We hear about Boston, we hear about Chicago now, Dallas, Detroit, but there's a lot of players coming from that metro area. You know, isn't it?
Sure.
Then where's the number 2 or number 1 pick this year player?
He's from Long Island.
So
Jimmy Higgins.
Now, where would he have played in New Jersey or Long Island?
He would have been Long Island, and then he would have gone to U.S. development program.
I think he did a stint. I think Scotty's right. He did do a stint with I forget the name of the team, but in the USPHL, that Premier League they got there.
Yeah,
and he was with the Jersey. Yeah, and Adam Fox is from that area too. He's from Jericho, New York, and Long Island. Yeah.
They're a lot.
Yep.
Yeah. So the Bruins, James, watched the game from Florida, the Panthers, and boy. Swayman's back on the beam there. Boy, he's really done a great job for them in the last couple of weeks. People keep writing them off because they look at names and everything. But I didn't see the late game last night, although I saw a couple of periods. But then it must have blown in at the end. But with all that whole mash of teams that are in the mix, I still think it's going to be hard to discount New York and Boston. I don't know. I just got a feeling about them. I know Columbus has been terrific, and Philadelphia, like Detroit, all those teams, Ottawa. I can't. We're much too early to even think about what's going to happen. But Boston, when you think they're not going to make it, then they come on and they beat teams that they I don't know their schedule or anything, but they're in a tough division. They're a tough division.
Yeah.
But they win. They win games that you don't think they're going to win. They'd be tough. They'd be a tough team on the gamblers.
That's for sure. I don't go near them when I make my picks here. Yeah. But just quickly back to Hutson, Scotty. I want to just ask you, you had a coach against players that had amazing vision, and I'm not putting this label on Bobby or, putting that to Lane Hutson, but I'm just saying that's one of the players you had a coach that had amazing vision. How do you defend when you have a player like that has that speed and that ability to know what's going to happen before it even happens? How do you defend against that?
Boy, you got to be so careful. And because those players, where they really gain on others is, like I said, that play, I still go back to that play against Dallas. You got to be so careful when he's on the ice, like when you have the puck, because he takes chances, but he's got so much skill and so much will that when he gets the puck, you can't. He's very unpredictable. Sometimes he can go outside, he can go inside. He'll take shots too from the net, from the point. It's not like I think I read somewhere even this year the difference with Quinn Hughes is they worked on him to take more shots because those players are perfect passers. They don't. The puck goes through. It's I don't know. There's a few guys that they see the ice and they know how to pass. In fact, I was watching. I didn't know a lot about this player because I wasn't in Buffalo when he went there. But I watched some games with Vegas lately, and Jack Eichel, especially on the power play and stuff, he's got good. He's such a good stick handler, and he's got courage enough he puts pucks through guys. You think it's going to be picked off by the sticks and everything because the players put sticks in the right place, but that's the way that Hutson is. Like you don't think he can make this play. Bobby Orr was the same way. He's not going to make this play, but sure he is. He's gonna backhand it, or he's gonna put it somewhere that the guy's gonna get it. And they might have a good shot this year. I mean, it's been only a couple of weeks, but they seem to come up with these younger guys are helping them. You know, like Lane's. I gotta be saying, I never thought he could do what he's doing now. I mean, somehow whatever happened after his rehab or Montreal, he looks like a different player, doesn't he, Pierre? Is he better?
He really does, Scott. He
must have gone into physical conditioning too, because he's skating better than he did with the Columbus, and then previously he looked like he was never in as good a condition as he is now. And of course he's got the shot, and it's amazing. They're getting good hockey though, Montreal. Pierre knows the backup goalie, but they don't play him, Pierre, do they?
Well, he might play in Dallas tomorrow, Dobish, but we'll see. We'll see. Scotty, you know what? I got to ask you a question. You're such a great resource for all of us to learn from. In 1971, Al McNeil was the coach of the Montreal Canadiens. You were coaching in St. Louis. Eventually, not long after, you go to Montreal. You knew Al McNeil probably better than anybody that's still around. Can you talk to us about Al McNeil, the person, and the hockey man?
Oh, yeah. Al, he put in so much time. I got so many stories to tell you about Al, but, he went to his first job after Montreal. Sam Pollock was always pretty astute at getting players that he just, if he liked the player, even if he's on another team, he's going to try to get him. And, he somehow remembered Al from junior, because it was captain of the Marlboros when they won the second of two Memorial Cups in a row in 1955 and 56. And anyways, they got him at the end of his career. And I think Sam must have felt that it must have known him something about him. And he put him in Houston as a playing coach. And he was playing coach in Houston. And Al told me this story, and it's really strange, because he said, I had three goalies down there. Montreal had Vachon, and they had Worsley playing regular. And I had Phil Meir, and he said I had, I think he said Wayne Thomas, and he also had Phil Esposito, Tony, yeah. So he said, we had a lot of young players. He had Guy Lapointe there. He had Serge Savard. He had Jacques Lemaire, all at the same time. And they'll tell you, Savard and Lapointe still to this day will just say that one of the biggest influences in their careers. And look at a Hall of Fame player. But anyways, he told me the story. Sam called him. Sam never went to a lot of games, but he trusted his people. He said, Al, Gump is hurt for a couple of weeks. We need to bring up, he said, we bring up Phil Meir. And he said, well, Sam, I can tell you, he's a good goalie, but the guy that's been really good the last 3-4 weeks is Tony Esposito. And he said, if you're going to bring a goalie up, and Montreal brought him up. And I mean, maybe Dryden, I don't know if it was even Dryden. No, Dryden wouldn't have been there.
He was in the Maritimes, Scotty. I remember you told me the story. He was in Halifax.
Yeah. And then Al and I got to know each other because I took over the Canadiens, and then he took over the Voyageurs. We had players down there, Riseborough, Lambert, Tremblay, all those young players that we said, even some of the others we sat down for a couple of weeks. He would work with them. Robinson he had for a whole year, and so we got talking about hockey, and Toe Blake also was very friendly with both of us. And Toe was not coaching at that time because he retired, but the two things that Toe worked, he told both of us. I remember once we had a little bit of a coffee or lunch with him, and he said, the two things I want you to continue to work on, two things that people never talk about. And we said, oh, well, what's it? We're going to learn something. He said, in all your practices and everything else, make sure your players never, ever try to go offside or even make it close, and be tough on them, even to the point when it's not even an offside, let them think it was. And of course, now you got the video, but still, he said, team that never goes offside is going to get more offense, more chances than ever. And of course, in today's hockey, it's the same thing. I mean, how many goals do we get called back now because of video?
Yeah.
But it's nobody's. People get upset. It's the fault of the player. I mean, why would that player that got offside? He knows that there's films now, but in our day we didn't have films, so the coach had to convince the player. You start going offside, you're gonna be onside on the bench. So that's and the other thing, Pierre, that he told us, work on something. He said, I think it may be even more important. I don't care how you do it, but I can help you. When players are changing on the fly, they're not going to, he called it lollygag their way to my bench. They're going to give me the last 3 strides. And I'm going to have better change over the course of a season of 70 games. I'm going to have better changes. So he said, as coaches, you can't do everything, but always do 2 things. Make sure you don't go offside, and make sure your players, I don't care what they think of you or not. They might look at you and say, "Are you crazy? Well, what's the difference?" The guy jumped. No, he wanted the players to go to the bench. He said any team that makes the best line changes over the course of the season in the playoffs will have an edge. And they're like, I never thought of that. Like in all my years I coached, and I was thinking about Al, and I said, "Gee whiz, Al and I had the same idea, but we got it from Toe Blake, and make sure you do those things." So, but no, Al was comfortable doing what he did down there. I kept in touch with him. We talked to each other. The last time I talked to him, I didn't even know he was sick. I knew he was sick 2 years ago because he was in the hospital for a summer, and he had a place in Sydney, Nova Scotia. He didn't go down, but he did go down 2 summers ago. I don't think he went down last summer, but when Stan got the job, just to show you what kind of
in Edmonton, Stan Bowman.
He only knew Stan as a young boy. He said, "You tell Stan, you call him, and you tell him there's a player on his team that people dump on all the time, and you tell him whatever he does, make sure he doesn't ever listen to people about." And you know who it was? It's the big defenseman,
Darnell Nurse.
He said, "Scotty, I'm telling you, he's one of the toughest guys. Don't ever let him." He said, "You got to get him not to make as many mistakes." But Coffey's done a pretty good job of making Nurse like not go up all the time. Like, I think but Nurse is a pretty underrated defenseman now. He's not doing the giveaways that he might have done when he started. Pierre?
Oh, I agree.
Al called me and said, he said, "Could you get Stan to call me?" And I know he's been hooked up with Calgary, but Al's a good friend. And Stan called Al, and he talked to him. He had a low voice near the end, but it was a wonderful person. I mean, and Pierre, I'm sure Pierre knows him like we do. But
I was fortunate to get to know him through you, but every time I'd go through Calgary, I'd always spend time with Al, and he was just amazing. Jimmy, I just want to brag about Scotty for 1 second. He's given Toe Blake all that credit. I can tell you, I was part of an organization where Scotty worked, and we would practice line changes unlike any other team. And and that's why he was so good in manipulating.
They didn't like horn.
The boys didn't like the duck horn. Scotty would use a duck horn, and the guys didn't like that.
No, I told them if they don't come to the bench, they're going to have the odd slip. But now, Pierre, it's all changed because the game's so fast. The shifts are short. But I still look at some teams. I'd like to see the guy give me that last stride a little bit quicker, and you can get on the ice quicker when you're not getting on the ice when the puck's in your own end. Maybe get on the ice when the puck's in the neutral zone. It's a big thing, Jimmy. And I know Glenn. I know I talk often with Glenn Sather, and he was a very he was an underrated kind of coach, and he's the one coach that decided to put the oncoming guys at the far end of the bench. And you'd come off one end, and the other guy jumped on the other end.
And guess who brought that to Chicago for Coach Quenneville? Scotty Bowman. Nobody did it better than Chicago.
That's a coach. that's a coach that should be back in the league. You know.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Come on, Scotty.
We've been
Come on.
surprised, Scotty. I mean, how many have we had now, Pierre? 3 firings so far,
it's
too,
just-
and he
Well,
still has
last-
a job,
And last year he couldn't get in. This year he can.
but he's cleared now. Yeah, he's cleared.
Oh, since May. Since May.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know.
Ugh.
I'm
Keep
just
me
gonna ask-
posted.
Go ahead.
I got about a couple of minutes, but no, I was trying to figure out, like, these teams that are in the contention now. The
Mhm.
problem is going to me, the tough part is the ones that are in the, is it called the Atlantic Division?
Yes. Yep.
There's too many in that team. See, they're all pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard to jump over. Like I watched the Lightning play a lot, as you know, but
Right.
they lost another tough game last night.
Mhm.
Like the points they got games in hand, but they're squandering points right now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like last night they lost again to, in Boston, they got back
lost
where they
point right before the game. They lost point. That didn't help. You could tell they were disjointed at the beginning, Scotty.
what happened on that?
He missed a team meeting in the morning.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So well, that's something that they don't fool around in Tampa.
Yeah, you got to set an example.
Yeah, that's a big loss. I mean, but they got games in hand, but games in hand are not points in hand either. And
Exactly.
Where have you heard that before, Jimmy?
yeah, but when you look at the division, Boston.
Oh yeah, Detroit,
Toronto's-
Ottawa.
Toronto's on a 3-game losing streak now.
Yeah.
They're coming down a little bit, and then you got the teams like Ottawa. I don't know who this new goalie. Who's this new goalie, Pierre?
Levi Marilainen. He was drafted
knows
in
him well.
2020. He's a real good Finn. He played major junior in Kingston. You would like him a lot.
Where's he been? Where's he been the last 2 years?
Over in Belleville in Finland. Yep.
Yep.
You would like him. He's
That's
your kind of goalie. He's your kind
That's
of
the
goalie.
position. Yeah, that's the position that they have to get some goaltending.
Yeah, well, they got a goalie coach there, Justin Peters, who I think is as good as anybody in the league. I worked with him, Scotty, for over a year in Ottawa. He's a tremendous goalie coach. He's really you would really admire this guy. You'd like him a lot.
Yeah, and see, like we thought Detroit last night had 2 points.
We were just saying that. Yeah. Then they just get smoked by San Jose. Yeah. Anything can happen now.
Jimmy, you know what? I know that he has to go, and he's being too nice.
I was just going to say that too.
Thank you. I will
Thank you
talk
so
to you
much,
later.
Scotty.
Thank you.
I'm on the way. I'm going early to Tampa because I I'm doing a favor for a guy from Detroit that did a lot of favors for me. Actually, he's Mike. It's Marion Illich's brother's son.
Okay.
And I'm going to Salt Lake City.
You are?
Yeah, tomorrow to watch.
Wow.
They asked me to come, and it's his company, and they're having a big celebration for different customers. So I'm doing them a favor, and I'm going to see the Rangers play there.
Yeah, well, they're going to need a win because last night they got throttled by your old team from Montreal.
I know. Yeah, the Rangers, but I still think the Rangers have enough with the goaltending, Pierre.
The goalie's got to go, though. The goalie's got to play like he played last night.
The problem with those goalies like he and Swayman is like they can't play every game. Although Winnipeg's doing just about the opposite. They're playing, but I'm wondering if they'll keep doing it down the stretch because they're getting such a cushion. I'm like them. If I want to win a game, I'm going to play Hellebuck. But at a certain point in the playoff in the regular season, they may let up a little bit when they know they're in. But they're a team that is surprising everybody again. I mean, they're getting a good cushion, but the other goalie, he hasn't played enough. Comrie
doesn't play. But Scotty, you know what? And I know how much you watch it, Hellebuck has never won in the playoffs.
No, but maybe he's played a lot though.
That's what I'm saying. It's to your point. They got to take a step back and give him some rest. I agree with you.
Take a chance.
And they have that advantage being in the West, guys, because if they were in the East, I don't think you'd really have the chance to rest him, right? Because I think teams are pulling ahead a little more in the West.
And maybe with a month, but Winnipeg too. You got to be looking at their team. They travel a lot. They must. Not a mile. They're not like New York or they're not like the East Coast teams.
No.
I mean, they're going east and they're going west. I mean, it's a good hike all the way out to the coast. Gee.
Yep.
Hold on, wait a second. You won 3 Stanley Cups in Detroit, and you were playing in the Western Conference. No. Don't start giving me that.
Hey, Pierre, tomorrow my flight is 5 hours nonstop.
Beautiful.
I'll enjoy the game. Okay.
Enjoy the game. Let us know how you like the arena. I heard it's loud.
I'm texting you later. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye. All right. Thanks. Here he goes, the legend Scotty Bowman. Oh, what a treat.
This is when he gets me upset because he never takes credit for anything. Okay. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
So he's like, poor Winnipeg. They got to always go out and they got to do this. And so one time I'm coaching, right? And he's coaching and we're talking on the phone and there weren't a lot of cell phones and there were some, but not like we have now.
Yeah.
And we're talking. He goes, I got to get off the phone. I'm like, why? Where are you going? He goes, well, we got to fly to California. I said, yeah, no, I know what the schedule is. Yeah, but there's so much headwinds. We got to land in freaking Topeka, Kansas. I'm like, for what? He goes, we refuel our plane halfway to California.
Oh my gosh.
We stop in Topeka, Kansas. And do you know why they do that? Kansas, and I don't know if the laws have changed or not, there was no tax on jet fuel. So all those private planes were going to Topeka, Kansas. They would land there, refuel, and then bolt.
That's brilliant.
So when I hear him say, pardon me, I said, when I hear him say, oh, those poor Winnipeg Jets, all that. I'm like, wait a second. I know what your 3 Stanley Cup winning teams did in Detroit. What do you think? They were in the Western Conference. People forget.
I know that's right. Yeah, I know.
Like he'll never take credit for anything. Like he didn't want to talk about line changes.
No.
Until I brought it up.
Yep.
And then he said, oh, Pierre, the guys didn't like that. No, so here's how it worked.
Okay.
I ran the practices. He would sit either on the bench or in the stands. But there'd be some day, all our practices were planned. We would never do anything without his blessing.
Okay.
So one day he says to me, Pierre, we're a little sluggish on line changes. I want to fix the line. I said, okay, tell me what you want. You don't have to do anything. Just get the guys in the bench and I'll take care of the rest. So we do our regular practice. And then I said, boys, go to the bench. Scotty wants to. And he explained to them how we would work. So if it was 2 duck calls, one team had to change. If it was 1 duck call, the other team had to change. And you had to get if he blew 1 duck call and you didn't have possession of the puck, you couldn't change. You had to go get possession of the puck, get it back, and then change. Wow. And so the guys were like, and he started playing mind games and he started making them mad. And he goes, oh, Pierre, the guys didn't like that.
Glad they got to learn.
Till we won 11 straight games in the playoffs to win the Stanley Cup. Then they loved it. They loved it.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah, and I was thinking as he was talking about that, Pierre, and how it still makes such a difference. I mean, look at the Bruins against the Panthers 2 years ago. Remember they had like 6 too many men in the ice in one playoff round?
So none of these young, and I'm nothing against the young coaches. Look, I like to still think I'm young, but they never learn like this. How many have never talked to Toe Blake?
Yeah.
How many ever talked? Like I talked to Toe Blake through Scotty Bowman.
Yep.
A lot. And so you keep learning. It gets passed on. You heard him talk about Al McNeil. How many people even talked about Al like the way Scotty talked about?
I didn't hear
he worked with him. He talked about it. He had an impact on Riseborough. He had an impact on Jarvis. He had an impact on LaPointe. He had an impact on Serge Savard. He had those 3 goalies down. He had Tony Esposito down in the American Hockey. Actually, it was the old IH. It was a Central Hockey League.
Yeah.
It wasn't even the IHL.
And I love what he told Stan.
Yeah. Think about it.
Yeah. And it's great what he told Stan about Nurse, too.
Well, the
fan recognizes that from afar. He says, look, this is a kid. I can see the talent in him. And, he's getting killed from the fans and the media. And it's great that he said that to Stan. He said, look out for him because you have something in him. And that's huge.
But the other part that he said, and good for you for listening to that. The other part he said, Coffey's doing a good job with him.
Oh, yeah. And we've talked about that before.
I'm just telling you, for Scott to say that, that's strong. That's a huge endorsement. I'm just telling you, he doesn't throw around compliments very often. They're like manhole covers.
I remember when he complimented me, I still remember. It was like, whoa. So it's pretty amazing.
All right, get to our sponsors, please.
Yeah, let's do that quick. But, man, that was something. All right.
He never disappoints. And you know what, Jimmy? You got to be transparent here and tell the viewers. we had Kenny Holland,
Mhm.
and you did at the start, but Kenny was coming, and Kenny had to deal with an issue because he's moving right now. We get that. Totally understand.
Yep.
And I was walking in the – so you can tell everybody the story. Go ahead.
When I text Pierre and I said, Kenny's got to cancel. Something came up with the move. What do we do? And Pierre just said, get Scotty. Tell him we need him in a pinch. He'll do it. And I text Scotty, just right back. No problem. When do you need me? And we started talking times. And he says, as long as you have me out by 4:45, I'm good. I don't worry about it. But it's great, Pierre. So then for the next hour, I didn't even tell you this yet off air. I'm telling you this now. And he referenced it a bit there. We were just talking hockey. We were going back and forth talking Lane Hutson, and I loved it. And I'm actually driving. I had to go down to the grocery mart. And he's texting me, and I said, I'm pulling over. I'm not. So I'm sitting there in the gas station parked, texting Scotty Bowman and talking hockey with. It was great. It was great.
Yeah, that's good. But Jimmy, you have to tell. I was in the middle of the woods.
Yes, Pierre was out in the woods. He was giving me a photographic tour of the land that he's on up in Tremblant. It was really cool. You got a lot of land there, Pierre.
Thank you. That was my late father that did that. But I was up in the woods with my wife, just going on a long walk, and you saw how much snow there was. And that's the beauty of these phones, because honestly,
but sometimes it doesn't work that smoothly, though.
No, up here it does. We got over at the ski mountain. They got the big tower, so it works pretty good.
Yeah.
But anyways, and I'm like, Jim, you're not going to believe this. I know you're going to think that I'm nuts and bailing on you, but I'm actually in the middle of the woods, so I don't know how long this is going to work.
It's fine. It was fine. We usually have our talks and plan, but we knew what we had to do. And once we get Scotty, you just let him go.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So go to our sponsors.
Yeah,
I'm sure we
talked about Kenny Holland moving. Well, listen, for you big companies out there that need to pull off a move, you want to get over to TCS Customs and Logistics. That's one of our original sponsor, and we're glad to have them. Yep. You want to unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics. From around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freight, customs clearance to drawback consulting, TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport. They're moving pieces and delivering a peace of mind. For no obligation customs or freight quote, contact Sick Podcast at shiptcs.com. Again, that's Sick Podcast at shiptcs.com. Pierre, I also want to tell everybody out there before we get to Betway and my pick of the night, and I don't know if you want to have it, but it didn't go well last night thanks to San Jose Sharks. Want to tell everybody January 24th, so that's a week from this Friday. It's creeping up. It's going to be here soon. I will be down at Sacred Heart University at their brand new rink, which I heard is beautiful. Really looking forward to checking it out. Pierre's been there. He can attest. They're having a tournament called CT Ice, and that's all the Division I schools, the 4 D1 schools in Connecticut will play in honor of Jason Pagnay, a great hockey coach and really someone who helped the hockey community tremendously that passed away a few years back. So really look at helping out with that. I keep getting the pictures of all the prizes. When I have a link for their silent auction, they've got some great jerseys that they're going to be auctioning off. So we'll let you know here. And then after that, the first 2 Mondays of February, we will be at West End Johnny's from 6 to 7 p.m. getting ready for the Bean Pot. Really looking for, from 3 to 4 p.m. because of the 2 games. 3 to 4 p.m. at West End Johnny's, 138 Portland Street in Boston, across from the Garden. Really looking forward to that. Really looking forward to seeing this bar up here. I've been in a couple times, but I was sort of in and out. But apparently they've got some of the best sports memorabilia you'll see in Boston out of all the 4 teams, specifically the Bruins. Johnny, the owner, knows Cam Neely pretty well. Used to hang with him a lot when Cam was a player. So he got some great memorabilia from Cam back in the day. So check that out. If you're going to the Bean Pot, come on down. Come say hi to Pierre and I. Get ready there. I know there'll be a lot of Northeastern fans, Pierre. That is their spot for the Bean Pot game. So a lot of red, black, and white in the house for that. And then we will be up in Montreal the following week for the 4 Nations face-off. We'll be over at McLean's Public House. That's up on 1420 Peel. It's Upper Peel, the upper side of St. Catharines, not the one on the lower, just that's called McLean's Pub. This is McLean's Public House. And we will be broadcasting 6 to 7 p.m. before every 4 Nations face-off game in Montreal. And then we'll swing back and we'll be in Boston, right back at West End Johnny's for the 4 Nations there, 6 to 7 p.m. So as we get closer, we'll keep reminding you, and we might have some contests we're going to run. So we shall let you know. And also, I want to thank Sam Adams and the Boston Beer Group for getting behind this. They will be sponsoring this and running some great specials and promos. And once I have that list from them or Johnny, I will show it up here on the screen, and we'll get that going as well. All right, let's get to Betway. And before I make my Betway pick of the day, I want to tell you to go over to Betway right now, get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code right in front of you, or if you want, go to the website or the app, go to details section to create a new account. Remember, they've got this offer, like I said, free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses, but it's only available for new customers. The offer is not available in Ontario right now. You must be 18 and you must play responsibly. Let's get to the sick pick of the day.
It's time for Sick Picks. Brought to you by Betway.
All right, I'm going with a big dog today, Pierre, in Minnesota, in St. Paul. Our good friend Billy Guerin and the Minnesota Wild are taking on Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Darnell Nurse and the Edmonton Oilers in St. Paul at the XL Energy Center. I'm going to take the home team. I sense a big win for the Wild. They've kind of been up and down, but they've stayed in every game. They never really get blown out. I think they did a good job weathering the storm. They're getting healthier. Give me the Minnesota Wild as heavy underdogs on the money line. You can get them right now over at Betway at plus 190. Let's go to the Q&A. What do we got? All right, Murray McDonald. Hey, Pierre, put your GM hat on. 1 year, entry level left on Lane Hutson. How would you handle him in terms of the contract? Do you look at a bridge deal, or you pay the player how much term?
I would pay the player 8 years.
Me too.
I want to get this done before the new collective bargaining agreement comes in. And I'm not even wasting time on a bridge with him. Star player. Not even. I said this. I'm going to stay as close to the line as I can. I said this before Subban got signed to a bridge, and I said all it's going to do is cost you tens of millions of dollars. I said that you can go check it out. I said it right away. And look what happened. Signing to a bridge cost them tens of millions of dollars, and eventually cost them the player.
Yep.
So I would not even waste time. We did the Tkachuk deal in Ottawa as a group, as a management team. 8 years. Don't mess around with those players.
8 times 9?
On who? Lane Hutson?
Yeah.
It's too early to tell right now. I got to see what the comparables are. Let's see what some of the other contracts are that come in.
Well, we will revisit that for sure.
I'd have to look at that. But it's 8 years. Like, just give him term and then go from there.
Yep. I'm with you on that. I'm sure he's going to want to sign it too. So next question. Bert L. for Pierre. In your commentary, you often make comments about where players were from, such as tough kid from Brandon. What hockey stereotypes exist for the different Canadian provinces? That's a very interesting question.
It's great. So I spent a lot of time in Manitoba. I spent a lot of time in Saskatchewan, spent a lot of time in Alberta, spent a lot of time in northwestern Ontario, and spent a lot of time in the interior BC. I didn't spend nearly as much time amateur scouting on the West Coast in Victoria or in Vancouver. But so what I'd say is, hard, in-your-face, tough, full-service athleticism from Saskatchewan. I'd say maybe a little slicker, a little faster in Alberta. And I'd say Manitoba is kind of a combo of both with not as many players just because the population in it is big. But one of the reasons why I say Brandon, because, if you look at the Brandon Wheat Kings over time, how many great players came out of there. It could be Brian Propp. It could be Ray Ferraro. It could be Ron Hextall. There's so many that Wade Redden. There's so many that have come out of there over time. Legendary program. And Kelly McCrimmon and his brother Brett, they're Saskatchewan people, but migrating Kelly did to Brandon. So he was an owner. He's a GM. He's a president. Now, he runs Vegas with George. So I like to do that. One of the reasons why I bring up where people come from, because those people, where they come from, those people had help to get to where they are. Mm-hmm. And I want to acknowledge the people that helped those people get to where they are. And that's every time I talk to Scotty, I can't stop smiling because I know what the stories are. Mm-hmm. And I know what he's done for me and a lot of people like me.
Yep, that's great. What would you say about players from Quebec? Is it still the same reputation as it was?
Fast and skilled.
Gotcha. All right, next question. Alex Ivanowski, what have you seen from Fantilli since becoming the #1 center since Monahan got hurt? He looks great to me. Alex, we've seen a lot. I agree 100%. We've been big fans of Fantilli here on this podcast for a while, and I'm glad he's seizing this opportunity right now.
So I'm going to tell you a story. It's inside hockey, but it's a good one. Colgate played University of Michigan in the NCAA tournament. My son was a sophomore, and he was playing in a couple different sequences against Fantilli, and I think Ryan won 13 faceoffs in a row. My son, and one of the things he told me after the game, they got throttled by Michigan pretty good. The first 25 minutes of that game were really tight, and my son told me, Dad, played against a lot of strong guys the last 2 years. This guy's a freak. I've never played against a guy bigger, stronger, or so sturdy on his feet as Fantilli. And that, I've told Jimmy this.
Yep.
See so many players over time. Fantilli reminds me so much of Mike Modano. I think when he's at, Modano played 20 years in Dallas and Minnesota. Doesn't count his time in Detroit. 20 years, like in between Minnesota and Dallas. It's a long time. This kid reminds me of Mike. And I say that as a compliment. I think Mike Modano in his vintage was as good as any player that was in the league.
He was amazing. That's a great compliment there. All right, next question. Alex Ivanowski, Jimmy, yesterday you said the Bruins need to focus on the long term. What exactly did you mean by that? Next year, 5 years? I look at their core and prospects, and I just think it's now or never. See, Alex, I'll respectfully disagree with you. I think there is no now. I don't see them, even if they make the playoffs. I don't think, Swayman could get hot and they go on a run. You never know. I don't see that. I just don't. I don't think the rest of the team can keep up with him. And he's not Superman. Nobody is. So I just think they're reaching a point here. And look, they're not just like so many other teams in the NHL. I think there's a lot of mediocrity right now. I think teams, because of the salary cap, because of owners, and Pierre's taught me this, owners that may be feeling financial pinch, the heat is on to make the playoffs. So sometimes you're not allowed to step back, evaluate, and say, you know what? We got to take the long view here. And I don't think the Bruins will do that, but I think they need to. I'm
going to tell you one other thing. This is not a popular thing to say, and I'll probably get smoked for it. I don't care. I'm telling the truth. It's how I see it. I'm allowed to have my opinion. I think the overwhelming hijacking of player evaluation due to analytics has hurt a lot of teams. Yeah. Guys do not want to pay attention and tell the truth. Some of these teams have been bullied into taking these analytic programs and people that know nothing about hockey. Know nothing about hockey.
Pierre, it's interesting, and I'm glad you brought that up. And as some news today, as I'm sure some of you saw, the Pittsburgh Penguins have waived Tristan Jarry. And look, first off, I just want to say for him, whatever's going on, I hope he figures it out, because I hate seeing a career like that take these turns. And I hate when a player gets in a rut, or just, in general, when people in general get in these ruts and you can't find your way out. So I'm hoping whatever it is, Tristan Jarry, you find your way out. But what's been interesting to me, Pierre, about this move today has not been a lot of good riddance to him, he didn't play well, or bashing him or criticizing the player. The eyes have squared solely on general manager Kyle Dubas in Pittsburgh right now. And as you're talking about right now, where, everything went so analytics heavy for the last 5 to 10 years here, 5 to 7 years, whatever you want to call it. Pierre, for some reason, this one move and the situation in Pittsburgh, I've seen writers who have been all in on analytics pull 180s today on social media. I think the jury's out, and they're realizing that it can't be the end all be all. And also that the eye tests should have more significance than the analytics. I think you're seeing so many people right now today come around and say that because of this move with Tristan Jarry.
Well, I know you're my social media scout.
Mm-hmm.
So let me know when I get some apology letters.
Exactly. And I'll vouch for you right now. And I'm not saying this just because you're my teammate. You were the one. You were adamant throughout all of this, throughout the whole wave of analytics. Slow down with this. You're weighing too much on it. You're forgetting about character. You're forgetting about grit. You're forgetting about brains. And yeah, you can see the tide turning. I know it's one day, but I'll be very interested to see as this season goes on, and obviously what happens with Pittsburgh, how much people sway away from just being so heavy on analytics.
So there's no sport that does numbers better than the NFL. No sport. Their
Agreed.
combine is way ahead of everybody. They're the first people to do it. They do numbers better than anybody. They have yet, and only one team that I know of, the Atlanta Falcons, and this was probably 7 to 10 years ago, because I did a lot of research on it too to make sure that I wasn't missing something.
Mm-hmm.
The Atlanta Falcons, under Thomas Dimitroff, who was the general manager, who's a Canadian, by the way. University of Guelph, I think, is where he played football. They try to come up with an equation for battle. How do players battle? So it's basically a character evaluation of intensity. They've yet to find that. They can't define it. There's no number you can put to it. So they actually tried scientifically to do it, and they weren't able to do it. Nobody in hockey's even talked about that.
Nope.
I hate to tell you, I know people want all this different stuff in hockey. Intimidation is always going to be part of hockey as long as there's boards and glass.
If the playoffs don't teach you, I don't know what will.
As long as players go around the ice at 25 to 30 miles an hour with a weapon in their hands, there's always going to be intimidation.
Weapons on their shoulders, their elbows.
Everything. So until you come up with an equation for me that can prove that this player is prepared to fight through all that physical torture and mayhem, go easy on the numbers.
Yeah.
Just go easy.
Yeah. You know, I was listening before we came on. I was listening to our good friend Mitch Melnick and his show, and Andy Bennett, who runs the boards there. You know Andy, obviously, Pierre.
Very well.
And Andy asked Mitch and John Still, because they were talking about the same thing, and she was saying, you know, is it me or you just can't Billy Bean hockey, can you? And for everyone that knows, Billy Bean was the big stats guy in baseball, Oakland A's. They made the movie about him. And he goes, that's perfect. He goes, you nailed it, Andy. You can't. You will never be able to Billy Bean. Good terminology by Andy there. Billy Bean hockey. You can't.
I agree.
All right, next question. Energized. Feels like the Sens need to add someone to the top 6. I think Taylor Hall, 50% retained, would be a great addition to Stützle on the wing. What do you guys think? P.S. Shout out to the 2020 draft class.
Oh,
interesting. Energized knows. He watches us a lot. There you go.
Very well done.
Very well done. Good point.
Thank
Good
you.
point. And you know what? I like that addition. If they're
I do too. At the dollar value, I would be interested.
Mm-hmm.
I would need to do, and I'm not going to say what it is, 2 pieces of investigation, and it's nothing nefarious.
Mm-hmm.
It's health related more than anything else.
I was just going to say that would be the only bar I have.
That'd be the only. That's the only caveat to anything. I'm not going to talk about what the health. I just need to check.
Yeah.
Make sure that player. But if that part passes muster, I would not be afraid to do that.
Yeah.
Not at the compensation point. No chance. I wouldn't be afraid.
Exactly. Next question. Posting it on 130. Hey guys and Scott, don't certain teams have the number on other teams in some cases for decades? And any general reasons why? I think immediately of the Montreal Canadiens and the Boston Bruins.
Well, I think about the Dallas Stars and the Toronto Maple Leafs till last night.
Oh yeah, much more relevant, much more recent.
It was unbelievable.
It's a good question, though, right? What is it? I mean,
it's a great question. I don't know.
Back in the day, Pierre, you could get it right because there's less teams. You play each other more.
Sometimes coaches could figure out other guys' schemes, and you just owned it, and you could beat up on it. Sometimes you just had a better team. Like, I'll give you an example. When Gretzky first came in the league, and Vancouver was obviously in Vancouver, they didn't have a very good team. Like they'd go in there with Messier and Gretzky and Curry and Anderson and all those guys, the Murray's, and they would just steamroll Vancouver and just pile up points against the Canucks. Yeah. And it took a while. So poor Winnipeg, they had all these good players, but then they always had to play in the playoffs against Calgary and Edmonton. Like, it just wasn't going to happen. So I think part of that is ingrained.
Yeah, for sure. Man, did the Canadiens have a run on the Bruins. All right, next question. Posting it on 130. Terrible rule. Coaches challenge on offside reviews on a goal scored. Slows the game down. Couldn't technology be introduced in the puck for offsides and goals? Would it change the game? I'm with you. I don't actually have a solution for this, Pierre. I'll let you take it, but
I do. I've been saying it for 5 years. And I know you know it. Once the puck breaks the plane at the top of the blue line, everything's onside.
Just like that.
Just like that. And think about, we talk about minuscule amounts of ice.
Mm-hmm.
If the blue line's like this big, Jimmy, it's that wide. So once the puck touches the top of the blue, everything's onside. It's not that hard to do. Then you won't have any of these reviews.
Yeah, because it's getting ridiculous. It's really.
I agree, and I like the question. I like the question a lot.
By the way, I was distracted there, Pierre. Our good friend Kevin Stevens says, Jimmy, I'm having trouble with the link getting on, so I had to send him the correct link. But he listens every day. So
and I know he was in Pittsburgh for the scouting meeting, so that's good. Yeah. I'm going to call already when we're done.
Yeah, he was worried he's missing it. He must have just been getting out of the meetings or something.
We're going to be all hanging out at Marriott's camp in about a month, so I'm looking forward to seeing Kev there.
All right, next question. Max R. Should there be a third ref in an office with instant replay that tells the refs on the ice if they missed a call or if a penalty should be taken back? Max, Pierre has been saying this for a long time.
7 years, Max. This is my thought, and I stole it from watching soccer. Or football, as they say in Europe. You have one official on the ice, two linesmen on the ice. You have one official upstairs, and he's plugged into a microphone system right into the referee's ear and the two linesmen's ear. He can see everything, and the players know there's an eye in the sky. So the stuff behind the play, guys aren't going to get away with it because when you're up there, you see the entire rink, and it's not hard to do. It would speed up video replay. It would help make calls on the ice easier for the referee, and it would create more ice for the skilled players. I can't believe we can. And one other thing, and I thought about this later because we're having so many young officials come in because guys are getting older and they're getting hurt and they're getting beat up. It would prolong careers. Guys' careers would be longer.
For sure, Pierre. I don't know why. Like, have you mention this to people that are in the ability to change that?
One person.
Okay.
And he said, I'll get back to you. And I haven't heard back. But I'm there's some stuff I want to do at the Four Nations. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. All right. Cool. I love it.
You can be there. You'll be there for it. You'll be there.
Oh, yeah. Pierre, I just want to tell our listeners too, I just got another text as we're talking here, and we have just booked the owner of the Minnesota Wild, Craig Leopold, will be joining us next week on Wednesday at 4:15 p.m. Eastern. So
Mr. Leopold is one of the go-to owners in the league for business proposals, creativity, understanding of marketplace, not being afraid to say things. He is an amazing citizen of the National Hockey League. I will tell you that right now. And I can say that with full confidence because I did a bunch of interviews with him when I was trying to get the GM job in Minnesota.
Pierre, I've heard too, like sometimes, owners, they like to keep to themselves and they're very kind of stoic at times. That's kind of the general thing with owners in sports. But I've heard great things about talking to him. Like I've heard he really loves to speak the game. And
he's amazing. He's a tremendous person. He's got a distinguished business background. I won't tell you the town where he's from, but he's been amazingly successful. Yep. People forget he was one of the premier owners of Nashville before he moved up to Minnesota, the state of hockey. I've had a lot of friends work for him. I still have friends that work for him. And so I'm a big fan. And I will tell you this, as much as I revere Mr. Vinnick down in Tampa for the way he treated me during the interview processes that I went through with him, I can say the very same thing about Mr. Leopold. Very, very same thing. Very same thing.
Well, looking forward to that. Next Wednesday, 4:15 p.m. Eastern, Craig Leopold joining us. All right, next question. Ron LaRoque, is the Four Nations being played under NHL rules or IIHF rules? Ron, I saw this in the queue there. I don't actually have the answer, and I apologize.
I'm gonna bet money it's the NHL because it's the NHL Players Association that's involved.
Yeah, the NHL and the NHLPA put this together.
Yeah, so I'm going to say it's the NHL.
Okay, next question. Max R, do you like the current schedule, or should there be more divisional games and less East-West games? Max, I'm not sure who asked it like a month ago, right, Pierre? We kind of addressed this, and I want to see it go back to more divisional games. But Pierre made a counterpoint if you want to talk about it, and it's a valid point.
It's the star power. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, Connor McDavid doesn't play in New York one year, or doesn't play in Florida one year, or doesn't play in Southern California one year. I mean, California's a bad example because they're both in the West. So I apologize for that. I spoke too quickly. And I'm wrong on that. He would get into California. But in the East, he might not get to every city. And I don't think that's proper, And I'm just using Connor. There are other great players. Like Quinn, let's just say the Vancouver Canucks don't come in. Quinn Hughes doesn't come to your rink. You want to see Quinn Hughes. Cale Makar, you don't want to see him if you're in the East. And, Sidney Crosby's getting near the end. He's not near the starting line. He's near the finish line now.
Mm-hmm.
I think people still want to. Yeah, Alexander Ovechkin. So, with respect, and I don't mind I think the question's fair. I'm thinking as a whole league. I'm just thinking for the well-being of the league.
And on that note, too, Pierre, given that the players and the owners are now marketing money and revenue is such a big thing with HRR and all that, I think, they want to market the game the best they can. So I don't think
I agree. I totally agree, Jimmy. Totally.
All right. Next question. Alex Ivanowski, am I crazy to think Kent Johnson has a little bit of Patrick Kane in him? Not just in a shootout, but in his overall game. I know it's early. I just see so many similarities in how they play. I think it's a good analogy, Alex, for sure.
The only thing I want to see is Kane was so consistent for so long. And as a smaller guy, one of the things Patrick had, he could dominate cycle play because he was so quick out of the corners. I haven't seen that yet enough from Kent. He's better off the rush. Kent is. Yeah. He's going to have to learn how to play in confined areas and, as a smaller guy, dominate the puck a little bit better. But there are similarities. There's no question.
Yep. All right, next question. FFFF. Hello, Pierre. Who would you put on the PP playing the point beside Hutson? I like Evans as right point, Hutson left point.
I don't want anybody else in the point. I want to play a 1-3-1. I want to play a 1-3-1, and I want to get to the flank so I can have Caulfield or Suzuki on one side. I could put Suzuki or Caulfield in the middle in the bumper, and I could have Slavkovsky down low. I don't want anybody else. I don't need another point man. Sorry. I don't want that.
All right, next question. Marco Lorebe, seen this debate recently. Is the East mediocre or is it parity? Are the top Western teams feasting on weaker teams? Marco, you must be a brain reader. You must be psychic. Because I was listening the other day to the Vegas game. I think it was on Sunday. I forget who they played already. But on Sunday, and I'm listening to our good friend Dave.
The Rangers? The Rangers?
Yes, it was the Rangers one, which they lost, by the way, right?
Yes, they did.
Yes. So, interestingly enough, before the game, Ghosh was saying how they have absolutely owned the West, but when they play the East teams, they've really struggled. It was something like 3-12. I mean, it was not a good record. And so that made me kind of think about it because I thought exactly like you did, Marco, that the East is mediocre. But now I'm like, well, wait a minute. Maybe it's better than I think if a team like Vegas can't handle it as well. So, Pierre, I don't know.
So I'll give you an example. Seattle went into Pittsburgh last night, and I told Jimmy off the air, this is a must-win for Pittsburgh. It was a huge win for Seattle because it keeps them breathing a little bit. They've had a really tough road trip.
Yep.
But Pittsburgh's got to win this because their next 7 games are on the road, starting in Buffalo, then go to Washington, then they go out to California. Like, it's a crazy, crazy trip. It's 7 games in a row on the road. So they lose last night to Seattle, Jimmy. They lose to Seattle. Tristan Jarry gets put on waivers today.
Yeah.
The day after the game they had to win before they go on a 7-game road trip, they put their starting goalie on waivers. Yeah. They know exactly what I told our viewers and listeners yesterday. Yeah. They had to win that game yesterday.
Yep.
So they know what the reality is. So Pittsburgh can't get any traction in the East. They've played more games than all the teams that are chasing. Now they got to go out West.
Yeah. I think the East is better than we give it credit for, but I do think there is an argument for mediocrity at times. And I think you see that mess of teams that Scotty was referencing earlier. Some of those teams can be very mediocre. I would definitely agree with that.
I would agree.
All right, next question. A to Z me, the worst team in the East this year can finish with a 500 record. Haven't seen that before, have you? That's a good point right there, too.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yep.
Fair.
That's
No,
good.
we agree. That's
All right.
that's a really good point.
Next question. Mike, Pierre, would love your view as a coach when Savard lost it on his team after that first period. You can tell that they believe they belong now. They know their standards need to be higher. Great observation by you, Mike.
Mike, I told this to Tony Marinaro last night. I was really surprised that people covering the game on TV didn't acknowledge it. It really was shocking to me. I thought they talked about how the coach of the Canadiens was going to go in and peel the paint off the wall. And I said to Tony, he didn't have to go in and peel the paint off the wall. Savard did it at the end of the first period. And he was yelling at the guys for taking bad penalties. And then obviously Utah scored at the end of the first period to make it a 2-1 spread for Utah at the time. And then you watch the start of the second period, the period of the long change. And Canadiens it was just like a whirlwind. They weren't stopping. But it was David Savard that blasted his teammates right on the ice in front of everybody to see to stop taking penalties. He took 4 minors in the first period. David got their attention, and that was it. They never looked back.
If they're still playing the way they are right now in April and they're in the mix or they're in a playoff spot, think long and hard if you want to trade David Savard. That's all I'll say.
Here's one other thing I'm going to say. If they're still playing the way they are, we're going to have an amazing relationship with the public house in Montreal because we will be there the entire playoffs if the Canadiens are in there.
That sounds great to me. I'm going to have to set up shop at the Holiday Inn on René Lévesque, and that sounds like a plan to me, Pierre.
Well, if that were to happen, you'd be setting up shop right behind me in one of my children's rooms. And we would be commuting back.
I thought you were going to stay at the closest police station, but
no. You're coming here. You're staying here. We're going to commute daily. That's what we'll do.
All right. Sounds good. Listen, that's all we got for our questions. We want to thank you as always. Great questions as always. We really love answering them for you, and we love the banter back and forth. And hey, what can we say about Scotty Bowman? Just an honor to have him on. Such a joy to talk hockey with him. And like we were saying before he came on, you learn something new every time you talk to him. You really do. It's amazing. 91 years old. God bless him. Scotty Bowman, Hall of Famer, join us here on the eye test. Thanks to Shane working the boards up in Montreal. And thanks to our wonderful sponsors. And again, we're looking forward to all the big events coming up for the eye test. And as Pierre said, we'll keep it going into the spring as well. So stay with us. Tomorrow, we'll be here for another edition of the eye test with Trip Tracy to talk some Carolina Hurricanes on the Sick Podcast Network. We'll see you then.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the eye test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.